You know, I want to say Dolby Atmos. I think Atmos and immersive mixing is exciting. I'm not ready to say it's game-changing because I'll tell you why. Because from my perspective and for the audience who I serve, it's home production, and they're all, and every time, you know, I convey the news, what's new in the production world to my audience. And when I talk to them, they're like, you know, what happened? It's just all about the music. We should just be writing songs and just making good music. Do we need to buy into this big system of Atmos and all this stuff that we can't afford to get? Why don't we just concentrate on the music that we're making? So for now, I'm like, yeah, I'm excited about technology like that, but I'm drawn back into the core of what we're supposed to be doing, which is song creation by my audience.
On that perspective, I'm thinking that the technology shrinking down and getting smaller and being like on phones. Like there's so many mobile apps now. Scott Jordan was showing me yesterday how he's like able to use all the Fab Filter plugins, and he's got a Neve plugin on his iPhone that, and of course now the new iPhone's USB-C, we can literally connect the interface and record high quality audio. So I'm excited about that and making stuff accessible. I think that's
AI
going to be
is like
a game changer
AI
for sure.
AI
Having the power of creation in your hand.
AI is like everywhere. AI is in the plugins. AI is in the way we write and create music. And it's another one of those things where I think having it in the tools is great. When it starts to, you know, enter the area of creativity is where things get a little questionable. But yeah, there's a fine line in that you have to draw there where we need to still be, we need to still connect with each other. And the only way we do that is to be able to say, you wrote something and you made a piece of music and I can connect with that as another human being. But if it's created by AI, you can't say that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and my whole take on the AI thing, I'm thinking that AI is going to be more like an assistant for us, right? My dream is to load up audio files in Pro Tools, have AI automatically edit all those audio files, set rough levels and give me a rough mix. Then I can go in and get really detailed and do like fine tuning stuff and creative stuff. So I think that AI has the possibility of really taking away the minutia from like our day-to-day work.
Yeah, I love what you said there, because you're saying let's make AI make our work more efficient.
Yep.
And then I'll spend my time putting my flavor on top of it.
Like normally, this is my workflow anyway. I have Ben, like, you know, Ben, you handle this stuff, and by the time I get the session, we've got organization, we've got edits, we've got faders up. Now I can do like the deep dive in the technical and creative stuff and be done.
I think eventually it's going to be really difficult to know whether the song you're listening to and love has been created by a human or AI assisted. It's going to be so difficult. And I think at that point, it's going to be hard to say, well, I like the song. Is that enough? Who cares who or what created it? The one thing that I think I always want to feel when I hear an artist or when I hear music is there's a thread that now connects me to another human being that created this. I don't want to lose that.
To me, the AI can only do so much in like kind of taking what's already been done and like remixing it a little bit. Like, and so that's kind of the most that we can get with AI at this point in my experience. So if you are a true creative, I think that you're good. Like AI is gonna not be a thing. It's just gonna be a tool to help you be even more creative, because you don't have to do monotonous, tedious stuff that you don't want to do.
Yeah, that's a good AI world to live in, I think.
Ideally.
Yeah.
And then to the point to where you say like, we want to know which stuff is AI and which stuff is like human made. I think there'll be like some type of government mandated labels. Like we have like explicit lyrics like on stuff, like it'll gonna say AI assisted, AI created, right? It's gonna have to be like some type of rating system to let the consumers know.
Yeah. Oh, what a world we're getting into now.
I'm working in Dolby Atmos. The room I designed a year ago in my home is a Dolby Atmos room. I love it. I love sitting in that space, listening and mixing in Dolby Atmos. And honestly, I think there are some challenges though when it comes to Dolby Atmos. And I think that main challenge is getting people to have the technology and accessibility to be able to experience this as well, the consumers. Because even me as a consumer, like we all have iPhones, and with the iPhone, you can use the AirPods and listen to music in Dolby Atmos, but I have mine turned off. Like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't like if I'm walking or working out or something and I turn my head and now the music's coming out mostly different. I'm like, I hate that experience. So it's off. I think that one thing that could help push that forward is if the like car manufacturers, for example, start to implement, and not just in the Maybachs, like, you know, like it's gonna have to be the Kias that start to put the Dolby Atmos speaker system inside the car so that the masses can experience it on the day-to-day.
Yeah, I think so. I think the car is a good place to have that. Yeah, accessibility is a big thing. I'm not currently mixing, I'm experimenting with Atmos. And one thing I love about it is that it gives you another way to express the music, right? You get more ways to say, all right, I want to throw this sound in another place because that's where it will feel different. The separation of sound is just exciting, and to experiment with it and make that a part of the songwriting process, I think. If you have Atmos in mind when you're writing a song or when you're creating a piece of music, you could take the lyrics somewhere and know that the music will follow.
Absolutely.
That's super exciting. But yeah, but people need to be able to hear what you intended. So the accessibility is a challenge.
Yeah, and what you said on that last part, like creating for the medium, to me is super important. Like I feel like is what's lacking in a lot of the Dolby Atmos music that I listen to now, that I hear, is that it's just remixes of stereo music, right? It's not something that somebody sat down and intentionally said, yo, let's create this. And as the producer is inputting, you know, what they're doing and composing, they're like, all right, these strings are going to be in the top rear, you know, and thinking that way, composing that way. I want to see producers like in the Dolby Atmos studio making their beat, you know, doing the compositions in this studio instead of like doing it on stereo. Like that will give us a totally different result.
I think we're heading in the right direction with things like AirPods. That's so much more accessible than a surround sound theater system in somebody's house, where that would be the only place for them to experience something like that. Right. So I think it's heading in the right direction. It needs to be more common. More other companies need to adopt it, and it needs to be. In the end, the listener is going to make the decision. Like you just said, I don't want the head tracking thing to be messing up what I'm hearing in my headphones. If you don't like that and you switch it off, at that point, you're saying no to the technology. So they need to figure out some of those things. And I think eventually, if those iron out, I think it would be exciting to tell a story in a new way with Atmos.
Yeah, and I think also too, there's opportunity for like there to be like a standardization in immersive audio, because there's not just Dolby Atmos, obviously, right? There's like the 360 audio and there's other formats of immersive audio. So first of all, standardizing it, getting everybody on one accord when it comes to that. And one thing I'm looking forward to that, you know, some of us may or may not, I think it's public knowledge by now, it might be when this comes out, but is that like the Dolby Atmos renderer, if you work in Dolby Atmos, it's like two separate applications. So if I'm mixing in Pro Tools, I'll have a separate application for the Dolby Atmos renderer. In December, they're going to be integrated. So the Dolby Atmos renderer is going to be completely integrated in Pro Tools, and it's nothing new. Like Logic's already done that, right, and have it built in. But with more accessibility and ease of use for the tools, because if you ever tried to set up a Dolby Atmos session using the external renderer and have to go and do the I/O setup and all that, it's a pain.
Yeah.
So just having that whole process be easier, I think is going to help it for the creative aspect to make more music that is produced and mixed in Dolby Atmos.
My spouse is in the room right now. I'll tell you something. Having a spouse, having a partner, having somebody who challenges the way you think is so important in life. And I think even in anything you do, if I make a video, I make YouTube videos, I create music, and she sees it in a different way. To have somebody look with different eyes is so valuable. And we're not always going to agree with our approach, with whether we love the results or not. But that's not important. But to hear someone out who's looking or with different eyes, who is hearing with different ears, I think is super valuable.
I love that approach. And I work with Lydia a lot. For one, I think it's just great for to introduce a second character into like what I'm doing. Like as far as for the story, like people love to see that interaction when there's other people. Like, yeah, you get me, you can love me and hate me, but if I introduce a second character, then that might up the chances of you like loving that person too, right?
Well, sorry to interrupt you, but I think we're also both lucky to have very vibrant, energetic, very lovable partners in our life.
Yes.
Which makes it easier. You put them on camera and they're like, boom, here I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And to that respect, my other point is that Lydia is literally in a lot of ways the opposite of what I am. And she like fills the gaps for me. So like, you were saying this earlier when we met, like, you know, that Dorothy like talks for you, or, you know what I mean? Like she can hold the conversation. Like, and I love when I get to go places with Lydia because I'm really not a very talkative person. I'm not a huge people person, the one to mingle. She is, man. And she will. And that's why why I keep Ben around me when I can, because he's like he's the person like, hey, let me introduce you to Wayne, and this is what we got going on. And me, I'm just be sitting there. You know, like I'm really inside of my own head all the time. But having that person who is like your counterbalance is like super important.
Exactly.
Having other people help me has been something that I had to get used to. I'm like super like a control freak on so many things. So being able to start to delegate and take my hands off of things and trust other people with critical tasks, it just helps me. Like, you know, so I used to do all my editing. I got somebody to help me that now so I can do more creating. I used to book and do everything with the clients and edit everything. You know, I got someone to help me out and just help relieve the load. So because it's hard. Like, you know, people, the demands of being a content creator are nonstop. Yeah. But at the end of the day, and well, at the beginning of the day, I'm a mixing engineer and I have clients to serve, like, and I can't spend all my time creating content. You know, I have to actually do the thing that I'm creating content about. Otherwise, I'm not growing as a in my own personal career. You know, I see like content creation as like a secondary career, like, but like my main career and passion is being an audio engineer. So like I have to make sure I'm feeding that constantly.
Yeah. Wow. It's tough.
Yeah.
I would actually say I actually have reprioritized things in my life a bit. So I create YouTube content. So I'm a content creator primarily.
Okay.
And this has kind of changed over the years. And then I'm a musician, a composer, a songwriter, and you know, producer after that. But what I've had to do, because I'm also balancing a regular job. So I have a day job.
Really?
Yeah, I have a regular job.
I had no idea.
Full-time regular job, and then I what feels like full-time.
What's your regular job, man? I have to know.
I do like IT project management kind of work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah.
I have a regular job too. A father of 4. You know?
Okay. Yes.
It's my daytime job.
That's a project manager position right there too. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I've kind of reprioritized things a bit because I only have time for certain things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love making the content for YouTube, but I also need to learn as I'm doing that. So I'm constantly learning new things so that I can convey that to my audience. Yeah. And then I love doing music because if I don't do music and use the tools, then I'm not able to translate what I'm learning to the audience in my music as well. So I do that. But more importantly, like you said something about delegation, which I think is extremely important. And what I've started doing is identifying the things that I'm not an expert in and somebody else is. Right. And finding someone who is an expert, like my brother-in-law does editing on the videos right now. And he's gotten so good to the point where things are getting better there. And I'm like, oh, I never even thought of that. Because I'm not the expert on it. He has a photographer's eye, so it just comes more naturally to him. So now I make room for me to do the work that I really enjoy and where I feel like I want to build my expertise.
Exactly. And you know, I feel like it's just my time is more valuable, it's spent more wisely, I should say, like when I'm not editing. You know what I mean? Like I enjoy editing videos, but I know like nobody else can create the videos. So I can use that time that I would be editing to go and create more videos. You know, if I could have somebody else create the videos while I'm editing, then fine. But they can't do that. So I have to go and delegate that part out.
Yeah.
You're probably pretty famous at work. Like, do you go into an office or what? Like, 'cause, like they're like, yo, Sanjay's here, yeah.
No, that doesn't happen.
They have no clue.
Yeah, I don't really talk about it much at work. Yeah, a few people know who are into music, and so
Right.
they enjoy watching my channel. But most people are like, oh, yeah, you do some music stuff, right? Yeah, and I'd kind of just leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, it's because obviously, like, what we do is like super niche. Like,
Yes.
and if you come to like AES or or an AM or something, then you're like a superstar, and everybody's tracking you down. But then it's like you go into Walmart, and nobody knows what's going on here. But so I was just curious about that. But I could definitely see how you could have a full-time job and they have no clue about what's going on YouTube.
Sorry to interrupt, but some of our friends we grew up with and know us, are like, oh, you're still doing the music thing? I thought that was a hobby. And we're like, they have no idea where the channel's reached.
Yeah.
Oh, are you still at 9,000 followers? Oh, yeah, a few more.
I think
A couple more.
if people are not in your industry,
Right.
they don't know, and I don't blame them for not caring.
Right. No, absolutely.
It's not their thing. Currently, I do not do sponsored reviews.
Okay.
Right? So I review tons of stuff on the channel. Like, a new keyboard comes out, and I'm like, I'll tell you what I think about this keyboard. But if I'm going to tell you my opinion about it, the pros and cons, things like that, I don't think I can do it if somebody's paying me for that review. I can't do it unbiased if somebody's paying me for it. So that's kind of a way I separate it. But no matter what you try, I don't think you can remove bias completely.
Right.
You're always going to have a bias. I reviewed a Native Instruments keyboard on my channel a few weeks ago. I've used their previous keyboard for years, so I like it. I'm used to it. I'm used to the workflow.
You came into it with
I
excitement.
came into it with a bias, but not because they paid me to make a video, but just because I like it. I'm used to it. There are some other things that I just enjoy using, or that I've used for years, or maybe I heard something, maybe somebody said something negative about it, and that's now influencing me. I don't think anybody's coming completely unbiased, but I try to be as unbiased as I can by saying, okay, this type of sponsored stuff I do will be feature tours. I'll give a tour of all the features of this product, or I'll do a tutorial on it. I love doing tutorials. I love teaching. So I'm like, if a company says, we'd love for you to make some content for us, I'm like, let's do a tutorial. And those, I think, are the easiest ways. And I enjoy doing them too.
I love that perspective. I'm glad, because I needed your insight on this. Like, like I'm like dealing with a brand right now that, have hired me to do a content piece. And they're not necessarily a review, but like you said, just like a walkthrough, like an overview.
Yeah.
But they don't like the way I say things, or, you know what I mean? Like, they may not like the way I make a certain joke about stuff, and that's just my personality. And so, like, I'm kind of at my wits with this particular project. I'm like, yo, you literally hired me to do this because of what I've done in the past, right? And now you're showing me that you don't trust me, and it's just like really like rubbing me the wrong way, So I'm just trying to. I like how you don't, make a clear line to where there's no. You can't pay me for a review, right? Yeah, and this is, again, this is not a review. It's just, even in this case, like, I'm just walking you through a product. Yeah. And they're like, oh no, don't. They wouldn't like it if you said that like that, like. Yeah. So, like,
I'll tell you, if a company wants to have that much control over it, they came to the wrong person then, right? They should be coming to you because they like that you bring something unique to your audience. And if they're going to want to tweak that, well, go somewhere else and go find somebody else to do it. Or, that's what I want to give my audience, what they expect of me. That feels authentic to me, and make the jokes that I like to make, and say things the way I want to make it. And good companies, the right companies, just simply ask you to do it your way. Those are the best companies to work for.
Stop asking us to review the video before it gets published, right? Stop asking us to do all this stuff. And if you want something, send a script and a bigger check.
We actually talk to them. So we'll sit down and we'll talk to them and tell them that, listen, these are the things that we do. You're trusting us with it. We're not going to do this review. We're not going to do this. So the conditions they come to us, we come back with our conditions. And if they meet it, And I always told him too, like, when you're in film and you're going to a Hollywood actor or actress, are they going to tell Tom Cruise, well, why don't you start acting like whoever else? No. they're going to them because it's Tom Cruise.
Right.
They're coming to you because you're Wayne. You're coming to you because
Thanks for
Sanjay
comparing
C.
me to Tom Cruise, by the way. I really appreciate that.
So always remember that.
Yeah.
Your value is so high.
Yeah.
And people want to see you. Otherwise, they could hire their own company's
That's
staff.
yeah, exactly. You know, they want to tell me how to edit the video.
Yeah.
Even I'm like, listen, man, if you knew so much, you could have just did this in house.
Yeah. Well, hold your integrity.
I kind of thought about this whole thing. I'm like, I want to be the Robin Hood of audio. You know, where I'm stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, right? But like literally, my life going through. I went to Full Sail, got into a bunch of debt. Like my mother and my grandmother had to sign these loans for me, like as I was going through, and we got to a point to where that really caused some grief within our family circle when it was time to pay those loans back. And I'm not taking away what the education did for me and helped me with, but if there's a way I can save somebody like that trouble, save somebody that debt or that time, then that's all about what I'm doing. So like I literally take the education that I received and get on YouTube and give the $100,000 worth of game away every day. Like that's
awesome.
my mission.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you said Robin Hood. My wife constantly refers to me as the Robin Hood because I'm always looking for the deals for my audience. I'm like, yeah, use this free plugin or download this free plugin, and here's some budget gear you can use.
Yeah.
Yeah. She says the same thing. But as far as mission is concerned, too, I love your mission. I'll tell you a little story. When I first started wanting to learn music production, I walked into a music store, huge retail store, and I didn't know where to begin. So I talked to one of the salespeople there, and I said, I want to start recording music on my computer. What do I need to get started? And pretty much just didn't say much. He didn't say much. He just had me follow him, and he grabbed an audio interface and some software, and he said, there you go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do I do with this? How do I get started? He's like, just go look it up or something. It was
Wow.
It was the point like he didn't want to help, and I felt so lost, and I kind of felt like he had the attitude like, well, you're obviously just a beginner. I don't want to deal with you.
Right.
And I felt that for a long time, and I struggled with learning myself. I taught myself how to produce music, and I go back to that time because I never want anyone else to feel what I felt at that moment. So I constantly try to, when I create content, I'm constantly thinking, how can I make the person watching this feel like they can do it as well? Like this is not hard. Let me explain it in a way that they'll understand it. Let me show them that this is something that they can do themselves at home. And if you don't have enough money for the expensive stuff, here's something cheap that you can get similar results with this, but just get started and you can do this too.
I initially created my channel because I was a huge Pensado fan, and I would be looking at all kind of tutorials, and I never saw a black or brown person giving an audio tutorial. Not one young either. They were all, older white guys, great information. Nothing against older white guys. Great information. But I was like, man, there's a whole market of people, because people that I know personally who are not going to click this, who are not going to watch this. We're missing a whole group of people. So Wavy Wayne was born then, like literally in that, like, look, I'm going to talk to the people that I don't feel are being talked to. And so that's why I lean toward like the hip hop culture and the bringing the swag into like the tutorials, like, because it doesn't have to be super dry and technical, right? We can have fun with it.
Exactly.
We can make jokes about it. And like, to me, that's what studio life was. I've always had fun in the studio. So why do we get on, the YouTube and make boring tutorials?
Thank you.
So that's my
that.
thing. That's the way I try to bring the diversity, is by being that voice for the people I felt like nobody was talking to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I started making YouTube videos, I would watch lots of other people's videos back then, and I would be like, why don't they look excited about this gear that they're talking about? Like, wow, I'd be like a kid in a candy store.
Yep.
Why is nobody enthusiastic and having fun with this? I'm like, you know what? When I start making videos, I want to make them exciting. I want to make them. I want to make somebody who watches them want to be that, want to be there, want to create that. So I started creating videos that I really wanted to watch. And I also knew that me being a brown person, I'm originally from India. I didn't see that on YouTube either in the audio production world. And being somebody who was kind of brought up in America, I have an American accent, but I'm Indian. It kind of like crosses a lot of borders there, right? And I know that when people look at me, they're able to then say, oh, wow, all right, well, he did it. I can do that now too. Let me give it a shot. And I love that, whether it's in music or whether they look at me and like, oh, I can probably make a YouTube channel better than this guy, but he looks like me, so that means, yeah, I have a shot.
100%.
Excellent. Take the shot. I think another thing that we've consciously tried to do, and I do this with Dorothy and my wife, we seek out independent artists. So we've been like featuring independent artist music on our Saturday news report. So every time we have a news report, I don't just play my music on it. We feature an artist. We get their music. We play it underneath when I'm talking, and then we'll play it in the outro, and then put a link to their Instagram or Spotify or whatever. So it kind of gives people some exposure. People who are some young kids just making beats and in their bedroom and stuff. And I think it just opens doors for that. And Dorothy has in particular been searching out women in the music industry, female artists, female producers, to really consciously make the effort to bring that forward. Look for your competitive advantage. Everybody has something that they can do that's special. That special sauce that they bring. Mine is very different from yours. So don't be like me, be like you. Bring what you're good at, and that's the one thing that people can latch onto. Maybe it's your humor, maybe you're really funny, maybe you're really it's kind of like you, right? It's like I can never be Wavy Wayne. I can only be Sanjay, but that's my competitive edge. And yours is being you. So if you bring something unique, you're going to find your unique audience.
Absolutely. Being yourself 100%. I was telling Eric earlier, like, my first YouTube video, I was not being me, right? Because I was like influenced by everybody else. And so I was like, apparently I had on a persona that I knew I had on. And then my friend, he was like, yo, I played him the video. He's like, why are you talking like that? I'm like, bro, this that's how I talk. He's like, no, it's not. Like, all right, let's do the video again. All right, so I did it over. And then, but like, yeah, and then I just start to show up authentic, right? And I love to, when I meet people and they literally just say, yo, Wayne, you're the same person as you in real life as you on YouTube. I'm like, yeah, because like, I'll turn the camera on and say what I would have said, regardless, So definitely that, I 100% agree with that. And something else I would add is, I think that, anybody that's wanting to jump into the creative field on YouTube or anything, like, think story. It's super important to just think about the story in every single video. Even if it's like a product reviewing a microphone, that's something I would struggle with. Like, how can I turn a microphone review into a story, right? And like a tip that I would have for that is like, hey, you start the video off. Hey, this new microphone is really great. I'm going to tell you 2 things I really love and give you 1 thing I absolutely hate it, right? Now, it seems like now I just actually hooked you into a story that you got to wait to the end for, right? Because everybody going to want to know what's the thing you really hated. Yeah. So am I doing the review? Hey, I'm going to review this microphone today. Like, no. Give them a hook, create a climax, give them a resolution, and a little extra something at the end, right? So yeah, I'm just thinking about story arc, and no matter what, no matter how simple it is, think about the story.
Yeah. I'm just going to add one small thing to that. A lot of this stuff doesn't come naturally. You have to learn that.
Yeah, absolutely, right? 100%.
You make mistakes in the beginning, and you're like, "What am I don't like this. I'm not feeling comfortable in this." And then you start learning more and more techniques like this, and then you apply them. So you don't have to know everything in the beginning, but just start creating. You're just going to keep on learning as you do it.
Yeah, and don't stop. Like, you're going to have to make 100 really bad videos at least, and then your 199th might be good, and then you can start going from there. But I guess ultimately, every video that I produce, it's a case study in ways to, and what I do is look back and figure a way to optimize the next one. So like that's how I look at it. I just look at everything. Okay, it's out there. It did this or did that. What did work? What didn't work? The next time I do something, we're going to tweak that last thing and just add something new.
That takes drive and discipline.
Well, one thing I'm thinking of right off is like, I want plugins to talk to each other. And then I was talking to some guys at Avius, and I was like, man, it would be really dope if we had a smart master fader. Not a master that just can understand the sum of all the tracks, but can also identify the individual parts. So like on the master fader, for example, if the sum starts clipping, they could maybe use some type of AI technology to say, hey, track 1, the kick drum could be pulled down 2 dB, right? And kind of get this kind of feedback from like a smart master fader that can like kind of analyze the feed that's coming into it and give you suggestions on how to improve the mix.
Wow, I like that idea.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
Yeah, patented. So I'm going to say something that has actually already started. So Presonus and Bitwig, just a few weeks ago, they announced a standard DAW file format, which means that you can create something in one DAW, and then you take it to your friend's house using completely different DAW, but you can open that project, and the plugin states will match. You'll have everything that you need to continue working on that project. I think that's amazing. But so far, only 2. I think just those 2 DAWs can do it. But if this was a new standard across all DAWs, I would love that, especially because being a YouTube content creator, I could create a piece of music and say, hey, the whole project is down below. You can download it, and anyone using any DAW can learn something from it, can use it in their own music. I think that would be so cool.
Yeah, I think there's other guys getting on board too.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
But yes, I love that. I love that. I mean, I don't know. For me, I'm so reactionary when I'm in my zone. Like, when I sit down to mix or produce something, I am not at all, I don't have any ideas, right? I hit play on a record that I'm gonna mix, and I start immediately reacting to what I'm hearing. And that just kind of drives the next decision, and the next decision is gonna be completely reactive. One way I like kind of look at mixing is like that every action has an opposite reaction, right? If I turn something up, it's essentially turning something else down in the mix, right? So it's kind of creating this thing. So again, I'm just reacting and mixing. If that would be a technique to be reactive instead of proactive, I guess, like, 'cause some people might go into a mix with like a preconceived idea, like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna use this new plugin on the 808 and it's gonna slap. And I'm like, all right, well, what if it doesn't work? So I just try to learn tools, keep them in my head. And when I'm listening to stuff, I react and pull the tools from my head when needed.
Yeah. I play this little game.
Okay.
It's constantly challenging what I think I should be doing. And I'll give you an example. It's like I'm working on a song and I'm like, oh, I love putting strings on everything. So I'll just all of a sudden start, composing some strings, throwing things into a song that maybe shouldn't be there. So then I immediately challenged myself. I said, what if I can remove something that shouldn't be there instead? So anytime I'm thinking, hey, should I add? I have to also think, what should I subtract to keep the space, to keep the contrast going, and all those things. So it's kind of it's a fun game I play with myself, I think, but it's a nice exercise to do. Even, no matter what you're doing, is you think, should I follow this path? Well, what if I do the opposite of that? It's just a creativity game, I think, sometimes. And many times it does work.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I hate to give like super technical advice because every song is different. Everything is just gonna be different, man. That the biggest answer that audio engineer can give you is gonna be, it depends. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you ask me anything, I'm gonna always start off, it depends,
Yeah. You can learn so much from just listening to music and then trying to imitate that, because you'll learn so much for yourself. But I think when you actually break the rules is when things get really interesting. So I would say just break rules as much as possible.
Yeah, that's one thing that I used to do. Like when I first started like getting into music production, I would literally all my beats were I would just remake other beats. Like I had no, like, just to start to understand what was happening.
Exactly.
Right. All right. I'm gonna try to make this same drum pattern and figure out what these chords are, and do the same changes from the hook to the chorus. Right. And that is literally how I learned how to do the song structure.
Yeah, it's the best way to learn, I think.